Hello, today we are gonna tier rank 50 Philip K. Dick short stories and novellas from early years of his career. There are some gems, but many flops too. Stay with me, and if you're new to P.K.D, you'll know where to start. If you like him, but not enough to spend hours separating the wheat from the chaff, we'll help with that too. And if you, like me, are devoted enough to proudly call yourself a dickhead, welcome brother, and let us merge our realities into one. Besides, I have a special bonus for you. Our today's guest is a real human being. At least he claims to be one.
No, I am a human being, and thank you for having me here. Now, before we begin our ranking, if you really like sci-fi, but you think you've never heard of Philip K. Dick,
think again.
Do you really believe that you've never heard of the author who's behind every other sci-fi movie ever made? Blade Runner, Total Recall, Minority Report. You've never heard of them, have you?
Doesn't it seem strange?
YouTube is ripe with discussions of his work. Any top 10 science fiction books of all time list will have it. Top 5 authors of all time. Any science fiction fan would have a book or two on their bookshelf. And you just happen to miss all of that. You still don't understand. Well, let me tell you my story. 3 years ago, I was just like you. Philip K. Dick, who the hell that is? Never heard of the guy. And then one evening I was going to sleep and I felt something hard in my pillow. So I cut it open and there was a book, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep by Philip K. Dick. I'd never heard of the thing, but on the second page, folded as a bookmark, was a note in my handwriting. Dear Arseny, that's my name. You have read all of Philip K. Dick's works and wiped your memory to experience reading them for the first time again. Add a mark when you're done with your next cycle, and then you could just see for yourself. That never happened, but that was just to give you a flavor of what kind of stories Philip K. Dick is famous for. Well, to be honest, he's not famous for writing those types of stories. He's famous for writing those types of stories better than and before everybody else. But he offers much more than just scientific speculations. In fact, he's not even that good when it comes to hard science fiction. What he's really good at is constructing those bizarre, broken worlds filled with broken people and asking you, how would you feel if you were in their shoes?
That was a captivating introduction, but let us proceed to the main part of the video, shall we?
Sure, Albert. So first things first, we're gonna cover 52 short stories and novellas from the early stage of Philip K. Dick's career. We're gonna start with the very first published story. It is Rogue, and I think it is published in 1947. And we're gonna cover the period from 1947 to 1955. So the blue ones are slightly earlier. They cover 47 to 53, and the green ones cover 53 to 55. And maybe this is not blue, but teal, but you get what I'm saying. So, first story, Stability. A bit of a hodgepodge of different ideas. There's a little bit of time travel, government control of inventions that impose stability on everybody, and there's also a strange evil city that is condensed and entombed in a sphere of glass. This story was not published until much later in Philip K. Dick's career, when he became famous and everybody just wanted to publish everything he ever wrote. It's tempting to think that, the publishing industry was just not ready for Philip K. Dick's genius, but actually the story is kind of bad. So, Stability, D, starting strong. Rogue. Rogue is a story written from a perspective of a dog, and it misinterprets a very silly event. I don't want to give too many details. This story does a good job of showing Philip K. Dick's attempt to get into another being's mind, even though that being may not even be human. I would say it's an A. The Little Movement. The Little Movement is a story about those little toy soldiers that try to overtake the world. I love this story a lot. I'll give it A for now.
Actually, I vote for moving it up a tier. To be honest, there are a few scenes that just never fail to bring tears to my eyes.
Sure, Albert. And you know what? I think I agree. My criteria for this ranking is essentially, first, did the story kind of click with me intellectually? Was there some insight that I never thought about before? And second, Did it click with me emotionally? Did it make me feel something strongly? And little movement, I was on the verge of tearing up myself. Two caveats though. First, I listened to it in an audiobook form. It is that rare case where having that narrator really helped me connect with the story, and maybe if I were to just read it on paper, it wouldn't have struck me as much. Second caveat is that, well, it doesn't affect everybody equally. It's my subjective opinion. For example, I gave the story to listen to my wife, and she did listen to it, and she was like, yeah, that was okay. So, I don't know, for me it was awesome. And so I do recommend it. It's not typical sci-fi, but I loved it. Beyond lies the web. So we have this, I don't know, trading spaceship that stopped on Mars, and one of the crew members got this weird animal that looks like a pig, and he bought it as a pet. It turned out that the pig was sentient and can read minds, but the captain kind of is freaked out by that stuff and wants to eat it for dinner. So that's the conflict. If you want to find out what happens, well, you gotta read it. I think it's a strong story. I would give it B for now, although it's very close to A. It's actually pretty damn difficult to choose. The gun. We have a peaceful spaceship that tries to investigate some kind of planet that is thought to not have any type of life on it. Suddenly, it gets shut down by a freaking gun that somehow functions on the surface. It seems that after all, the planet was inhabited at some point. The idea is interesting, but it did not strike me to the very core, so I'm gonna give it a C. The Skull. The Skull is a story about a person who is being sent into the past to kill some kind of religious leader because the religion that person seeded grew into something that the government does not accept and it just doesn't like. So it touches upon interesting topics, and I think it tries interesting twists, but it was a little bit predictable for me, but I still enjoyed it. And by the way, B is good, so B doesn't mean that I don't recommend it. Even C, I would say, yeah, go for it, read it. D may be somewhat of a waste of time though. The Defenders. All of humanity lives underground. The surface is uninhabitable because of constant war that goes on and on between Soviets and the United States. And this war is fought by robots. One of the robots brought from the surface acts a little bit iffy. But in what way? That is up to you to discover. I like the story. I think the themes, even though they became slightly less relevant for a while, now they're suddenly again at the top of our agenda. Are we all gonna die in a nuclear explosion? Well, the good thing is that it gives a fresh breath of life into those stories that were once somewhat outdated. Mr. Spaceship. There's a war against aliens, and in order to win, we need to make our spaceships better. One way to do that is to find some individual that dies and donates their brain to operate a spaceship. The brain is supposed to be in a state of some kind of coma. It's not going to be sentient. That's the start of the story. B. Interesting, but somewhat predictable. Piper in the Woods. So we have a military base on a distant planet, and there seems to be a problem because people think that they become plants. Why do you think you are a plant? I think that's how the story starts. I really like the premise. It's very bizarre, and I think it stays consistently good throughout the story, so it is an A. The Infinites. Another A. We have the situation where a spaceship is passing by some planet. The planet looks habitable and nice, they need to investigate it. Suddenly, the planet explodes with a blast of radiation affecting everybody on board, and the crew seems to go through quite terrible transformation, or so it seems at first. So, check it out. Although the main themes of evolution and superior beings, they're kind of very common for P.K.D., what I liked about the story is how masterful were the sensory descriptions and how he kind of makes you go through that experience with the crew. So I think that is what puts the story to the A tier for me. Not the ideas, but the execution. The Preserving Machine. Another A. The premise in this one is very interesting. Some kind of mad scientist made a device to preserve humanity's cultural heritage, specifically music. So he converts music into animals and sends those animals to the forests so that they could survive. A very original idea, I would say, and the theme of music very much resonates with me. And I think Dick did a very good job in capturing different personalities of different types of music. It is mostly classical music though, so if you're not into that at all, you may not enjoy it as much. Expendable. A person can hear insects and it sounds like they're plotting against him. So classical Dick paranoia. I did not enjoy it all that much, but if it's your thing, check it out. The Variable Man. For me, it is a C. The Variable Man is a story about this interplanetary or intergalactic conflict. The government on Earth relies on those predicting machines that can assign probabilities to different outcomes of events. So for example, what is the probability that we're going to win the war? What is the probability we're going to lose? And so on and so forth. But suddenly, a variable is introduced into the equations and those machines go crazy, and the variable is this variable man who is brought from the past. I mean, some of the ideas are interesting and it's a decent read, but it's a novella and I did not feel like for the added volume of text, we got enough added content in terms of ideas or emotional experience or immersion. So for me, it's a C. The Indefatigable Frog. So we have two professors who really disagree about some kind of modern version of the Zeno paradox. One version of it is Achilles would never catch up to a turtle. Let's say we have a race. Achilles, starts slightly later. So for Achilles to catch up to a turtle, Achilles first needs to reach the place where a turtle was at the beginning of the race. But by the time Achilles covers the distance, the turtle is going to move a little bit. Achilles didn't catch up. And so we're kind of back to square one. So by this naive induction logic, it seems that Achilles is never going to catch up. That is solved through calculus, but you can, I guess, modify it. Anyways, so the story is not about the paradox itself. It's actually about two professors who go really crazy trying to prove to each other who is right and who is wrong. It was fine, but intellectually it was not that enriching because the paradox was not really that deeply explored. And on an emotional level, it was also meh. The Crystal Crypt. A war between Earth and Mars is about to erupt, and we're looking at the last spaceship leaving Mars, bringing Earthlings back to Earth. Everybody from Earth is just basically leaving Mars because, well, Earth is gonna soon attack this planet. The ship is stopped for an inspection because Martian government believes that some terrorists that destroyed one of the Martian major cities are on the ship. So it's a little bit of a whodunit style, kind of pulpy read, but not too bad. So I'm gonna give it a B. The Short Happy Life of the Brown Oxford. So a shoe was animated in a shoe animating machine, or rather in a general animator. I love the story. I think it's a lot of fun. The premise is very playful and it's more of a humorous story, but I like the execution. I think P.K.D really gave life to the situation and it was an enjoyable read. The Builder. I love that story a lot. I would give it an S tier. It explores very deep themes, but the premise is quite simple. We have this white-collar worker who gets really obsessed about his seemingly harmless hobby. He builds a boat in his backyard, and gradually that just takes over all his passions. He doesn't want to socialize with his coworkers anymore. His neighbors are looking at him askance, and it also causes tensions with his wife, but he just keeps doing it and he doesn't understand why. He doesn't understand if he's going crazy or what. If you want to see where that goes, check the story out. I enjoyed it a lot, although it is not really science fiction, so keep that in mind.